JML is an innovative consumer product brand. Every product we sell has a story to tell, and that's really our point of difference, because we promote our products either with TV commercials, with infomercials on home shopping channels, or with screens in stores. So if you go into a Boots or an Asda or a Robert Dias, one of these stores, and you see a screen promoting an innovative product, the chances are it will be JML. We look at thousands of products literally every month, but JML operates on actually a relatively small number of products for a company of our size. Probably stock about 100 individual products at the moment, which is not many for a company of our size, and we sell very large volumes of those. So we look at thousands of products every month. Every week we have 2 product meetings, would you believe, every week, where we're looking at products. And these come from trade shows. We go to a lot of trade shows. They come from the USA. We look at what's going on in the TV home shopping market, particularly in the USA. And although our operation is largely retail, the products that are successful in the USA and TV home shopping often translate into retail in the UK. We're a member of a trade organisation for people, for companies in TV home shopping, so we network there, and we share ideas with companies who are in countries where we're not competing with one another. We share ideas, what's been successful for us in the UK, and they share their ideas, what's been successful there. We try and narrow it down to a few items that we think are worth investing in and developing and bringing to market. It's really important that we have products which are at attractive price points, otherwise they're not going to sell. While some of our products are unique, the consumer has got a pretty good idea of what's value for money and what is not. So generally, we are looking to hit a particular price point where we just look at the products, and we look at similar products in the market, if there are any, and try and gauge what we think would be value for money for that product. And then we look and see whether we can get the product manufactured at a price that will enable us to sell at that price point. So again, it's a juggling act, and many products that we look at, we reject simply because we can't meet the price point that we think would be successful. So it might tick every other box, but if the price point is wrong, then we will reject that. As we all know, China is kind of the factory of the world. Manufacturing costs are so much lower in China, a fraction of what they are quite often in Europe. So a large proportion of our products are made in China. Some are made in Europe and the UK. The ones that are made locally tend to be the bulky ones, which the cost of shipping from China pushes the price up, and therefore China becomes uncompetitive. It's a minefield in China. You need to have your wits about you, and I guess the best way to find a manufacturer in China is to go through recommendation from somebody else who's used a particular factory. Quite often you might think you're dealing with a factory, but in fact the people you're dealing with subcontract to another factory, and there's another margin in there. So, or you're dealing with an agent. So it is really important that you work with somebody who knows the scene in China well, or you have somebody in your business who speaks Cantonese or Mandarin. That's a great help as well. Initially, you're going to need to find somebody that ticks the boxes as far as your manufacturing requirements goes, and the cost and what have you. And once you've established that, then you need to try and work with them to meet your ethical standards. But certainly I think we all have a role to play here to ensure that standards are constantly improving in the Far East. But as I say, you have to be pragmatic about it as well. You can't suddenly say, right, I'm not, if a large company might say, oh, I'm not going to buy any more product from this particular factory because they've done something which we consider unacceptable. Suddenly you might find that large numbers of people are out of work and on the breadline. So it's a case of trying to work with the people you've got and trying to get them to understand what we consider acceptable and unacceptable. Obviously, child labour, totally unacceptable. Things like working conditions and health and safety, where they have to meet requirements that we consider acceptable. But again, it's a case of working with them to try and bring them up to a level. I would have thought approaching retailers would be the first port of call, really, because you can scale that to any size, really. You can start with small independent retailers who tend to be flexible, can make a quick decision, and then you can rapidly see whether your product's going to sell. You can get consumer feedback, or certainly through talking to the store owners and the store staff, you can get consumer feedback and develop your offer that way. You might think that a website would be easy. I mean, it's relatively easy to set up a website, but to get people to actually hit it is extremely difficult, because it's such a competitive market with millions, if not billions, of websites out there. So I think hitting retailers, I think then you can actually go and physically see your product, you can physically see people buying the product. You don't have to set up fulfillment or direct-to-consumer fulfillment, which can be relatively complex. I would suggest would probably be the best way to start if you had a new product. These big retailers could potentially eat you alive if you're not kind of really prepared for the kind of questions that they're going to ask you. So I think in terms of going to meet a big retailer, it's really important to give them some sales history from some of the smaller independent stores. You could say, look, maybe you're only in half a dozen stores, but you can say, look, I'm in half a dozen stores and these are the sales that I've achieved with this particular product. And that's the sort of thing that's going to get them excited, because they will then know that this is a product with potential. You need to have your pricing strategy absolutely concrete in your mind. I don't think there's any good going into a retailer and then negotiating on price there and then. I think you're best to go in and say, look, I wouldn't insult you by not giving you my best possible price. And okay, maybe you've got room for a tiny bit of maneuver there, but never negotiate on the price there and then. To have a very slick and convincing presentation. Absolutely essential, because you've got to remember these big retailers are being presented to all the time by global companies who've got very sophisticated presentations, and understand the market that you're in as well. I think that's probably just as important as the pricing. If you go in there and you don't know who your competitors are or the other products, then again you won't get much of the time of the retailer. Certainly spend some time visiting their stores beforehand, and it's really quite compelling if you can reel off a list of stores that you'd been to prior to the meeting and the different things you'd seen, perhaps even some photographs, although they wouldn't like you taking photographs in their stores. I think done discreetly, that's acceptable. At the peak, Woolworths was about a third of our retail turnover, and in fact in 2007, which was the last full year of trading for Woolworths, they sold £27 million of JML product. At the end of 2008, Woolworths went into administration, and we were kind of, obviously there was a blow to us, but it was something we'd been expecting for some time. Widely believed that Woolworths were going to fail in one shape or form. So Woolworths went, and in fact what we saw as a result of that was a massive uplift in sales of our products in all of our other retail customer stores. So it just shows that the JML brand was so incredibly strong that the customers who wanted to buy JML products were seeking them out in other stores. So we saw a natural uplift as a result of that, and pretty much picked up all of the Woolworths business that we'd lost through the existing customer base. Then, following on from that, we started to get approached by a number of big retailers who said, we want to pick up the sales that Woolworths, the sales hole that's been created by the loss of Woolworths. So in addition to seeing a natural rise in sales through our existing customer base, we actually gained a lot of new business as well. We refused to supply Woolworths with any goods without credit insurance, because You know, if Woolworths was such a size that if we'd supplied them goods without credit insurance and they'd gone bust, we would have been in an extremely precarious position. So we always said we would never supply Woolworths with goods without credit insurance, or at least we wouldn't provide them with credit. And that's in fact what we did. So when credit insurance was withdrawn from Woolworths, which is what happened a few months prior to their demise, and in fact that probably is what precipitated their eventual downfall, we stopped supplying Woolworths. We said, we're really sorry, but we just cannot supply you with any more goods. So we weren't exposed financially when they collapsed. We were fortunate in that our product range, I think, is less affected by the recession. In fact, you could even suggest was being positively affected by the recession, because we sell low-ticket items in categories which people need to continue to buy in: cleaning, health and beauty, DIY, and they're products that make people's lives easier. So in recessionary times, when people are perhaps cutting back on more expensive things, they're still happy to buy JML products. They make their lives easier. We inject a bit of fun into our marketing as well, so they kind of cheer people up. And so actually our products have sold really, really well during the recession. We haven't seen any negative impact, I would say, on our sales line as a result of the recession. Recession's had other impacts on us. There have been other consequences, but in terms of sales, really hasn't affected us at all. So it's actually a great time to be looking for new business during recession. When they're doing well, they tend to be less ready to try new things.